and why did you become interested in psychedelics?
I think like I've it mainly like spread off like my interest in psychoanalysis that I had before psychedelics came into the equation. I think I got fascinated by the depths of like psychoanalytical thinking compared to what like was available in my bachelor years around like cognitive and behavioral accounts of like the minds that as we know, like they're pretty like standardized and they like bring in a lot of like reproducible thinking, but at the same time, they leave you with like a feeling of just scratching the surface of something that is much more profound and vast. And I was reading Freud, I was reading Jung, and like at some point, things started to like move into the direction of like psychedelics, and I found the work of Professor Robin Cara Harris that has been like one of my mentors through this journey and like how he called like psychedelics like this new way to study the unconscious mind with modern neuroimaging, and that sort of like clicked my fascination in the topic. And then of course like some significant personal experiences came into the equation that drove me into wanting to understand this process better, I would say.
Can you tell us a bit about your background and how you came to Imperial College?
Like I've done my bachelor in Italy in Milan, and I've spent like yeah my like early 20s there, and then I moved to Maastricht University to do my master in like cognitive and clinical neuroscience, and from there I moved to London. There was like quite a strong link between Maastricht and Imperial College like before Brexit. Then unfortunately like blocked itself after Brexit happened, where like students from Maastricht were like normally gravitating towards Imperial to do internship and trainings, and that's kind of like the route that I took. And then I came here. I've like moved from like the intern research assistant and then PhD student path that it took a while, but in the meanwhile, like allowed me to like work on a lot of different projects that it definitely like enriched me quite a lot. And yeah, and then I think slowly, like when I started doing my PhD, like the interest, like the interpersonal effects of psychedelics came a bit afterwards.
Can you tell us about your PhD research and how you became interested in studying relationships, sexuality, and psychedelics?
Like my main PhD focus right now is like 5-MeO DMT and understanding like how the 5-MeO DMT can be used as a sort of tool for like disrupting self-consciousness and studying what happens when like our normal sense of self of having a body and having like in a narrator in our mind, our narrative self is kind of like disappears, and we've been studying it with like high density G and phenomenological approaches. I've like worked in like psychedelics for depression. I've done like DMT work. I've done work with psilocybin, like mainly focus with the comparisons with SSRIs, and that was like the initial like sparkle of the interest around like the topics of psychedelics and sexuality, because like we had some data that like suggested that like SSRIs versus psilocybin therapy for depression, despite having comparable reductions in depressive symptoms, they like separated in a lot of other domains, mainly around like well-being related domains, and sexuality was one of the strongest separators. And so we can investigated more the effects of psilocybin in different aspects of like sexual functioning or flourishing, how we called it, compared to classic SSRIs, and also like in healthy individuals after like psychedelic experiences. And this was a bit of like the original preface of the work, and the results were pretty fascinating. Like I think like we found some preliminary results that psychedelics might have positive effects on several facets of like sexual functioning, from the capacity to feel pleasure to the ability to communicate one's sexual desires with one partners, and satisfaction with one partners, the ability to like be satisfied with one own's body, and also like some exploratory interesting effects around like some increases in people like openness to try new things in their sex life, or seeing sex as something more spiritual. And these results were published like in 2024 in like Nature Scientific Reports. And of course, like you bring together like two very controversial topics like drugs and sex, and and this definitely like moved into like some more mainstream media attention that like catalyzed for further interest, and also in myself like a curiosity in understanding more about this, because I think the more I read and I looked into it and I talked to people, I realized that like it's not really that psychedelics are like aphrodisiacs in their common sense. Like they don't improve like pharmacologically any aspects of sexual functioning, but they have like some psychological effects that over time can be like I think correlated to like improvements in people's quality of sex life.
Given that MDMA is usually linked to improvements in relationships, were you surprised by the findings with psilocybin? And was your interest already there, or did the data lead you to it?
I think like I've always been interested in like love and sexuality and interpersonal dynamics. Like I've been I've been growing up like as a queer kid, and like that's definitely like a theme that like like was with me for a very long time in trying to understand like better all this like phases of human experiences, and what they mean and how like they're linked to each others, and like love itself and like connections with other individuals. I think like it's itself a psychedelic. It's something that like can induce very profound alterations of your self experience, and both in the positive and the negative domains, but like if done correctly, potentially like and ends up changing you, hopefully for the better. But it's definitely like something very powerful that then like potentially combined with psychedelics can induce pretty profound like yeah, like alterations of your self over time, which they don't necessarily like just intend the changes of like people's when they are under the influence of the drugs, but more over time. And like in the terms of like the sexuality aspect of it, I think that a key aspect is around like just like mindfulness, and we know that like mindfulness training is one of like the key psychological therapies that is used to like improve people's sexual functioning when they suffer from sexual dysfunction. And there's like I would say quite strong data at this point that shows that like high dose psilocybin experiences can increase mindfulness capacities, and I think this can have a downstream effect into people's sex lives, as well as like just the capacity of feeling like intimately connected with another person. And like I wouldn't necessarily like say they like cause that, but they can potentially increase a sense of closeness with significant others, and this can potentially have positive effects on people's sex life, but has not been directly tested, I would say.